Leader Michael McCormack.
Very practically and very quickly to deal with this major issue, and as the Transport Minister I've been working with the sector to ensure that of course the flight, the Mercy flight, which is being conducted by Qantas, and we thank Alan Joyce, the CEO, also thank the crew for volunteering their services, and as we speak that is on the ground, that flight is on the ground, and those 244 people, most of whom are Australians, will be brought home to ensure that that everything is fine by them. And of course, with the drought is ongoing, and the bushfires, the recovery and the clean-up efforts there, the government, as I say, has responded quickly in that regard too. I want to also talk about Bridget McKenzie, and I want to thank her for her diligent service over a number of years, but particularly in her role as Agriculture Minister, particularly in her roles in the ministry. She has paid the ultimate price for failing to declare a membership of the Wangaratta Clay Target Club. That is unfortunate. She has admitted that this was an oversight on her part. The fact that the Secretary of the Prime Minister and Cabinet has said that there was no bias shown in the actual delivery of the sports grants program shows that everything procedurally wise was above board with this program, and Bridget oversaw that. She had ministerial discretion, and that is important to note. I know Australians, when they send members of Parliament and senators to this place, and when they become ministers, people in the public, particularly regional Australians, want those ministers to make decisions for and on their behalf. They don't want the government and ministers to outsource everything to the departments, to the bureaucracy, and that is so important and critical to remember, that ministers have to have overall discretion for these sorts of things. And I know when I roll out the Building Better Region Fund, it is generally oversubscribed 6-1. 6 times of the amount that is actually available is oversubscribed, and particularly in regional Australia there are projects and delivery of these sorts of things which of course needs to happen. Critical need in regional Australia, particularly in this sports program, for such things as women's change rooms, women's netball courts and the like, toilet facilities, shower facilities. Why is it fair that women have to get dressed in cars and behind trees and that sort of thing to play the sport that they love? And with the growing demand for women's sport, this has become so critically important. Bridget McKenzie saw the need to ensure that women didn't have to put up without any facilities at all, or with very sloppy facilities, and she made sure that she addressed that need. I thank her for the role that she's played in that regard, and I thank her for her service in the past, currently and going forward to the National Party and to regional Australians in particular. She has been a great servant of the National Party, but moreover a great servant to regional Australians, and that's what National Party members of Parliament do. We serve regional Australians. We want regional Australians to know that they are our focus, not ourselves, not the Canberra bubble. The people in regional Australia are hurting through the bushfires, through the ongoing drought. We are there to serve them. We are there to put their needs and wants and expectations first and foremost. I thank Bridget McKenzie for her service to this nation, and I look forward to serving with her in the National Party in the future.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Yes, Phil.
If these grants weren't brought for political purposes, why did the government not make
Well, the fact is the ANAO the Auditor General made a report, and the fact is also the Secretary of PM&C found that there was no bias in. Well, I don't believe there has been a bias, and if you look at what Bridget McKenzie did, in fact, Labor seats got 8% more projects than they would have had Sports Australia's recommendations been followed through in full. The fact is we have allocated funding to those Labor seats, and the fact is, again, there was no bias towards targeted or specific seats or marginal seats, as shown by the report handed down to the Prime Minister by the Secretary of PM&C.
So why did the Auditor General?
No, hang on. I'll take one at a time. I can only hear one question at a time, so I'm going to take this question right here. So we'll come back to you, Mark.
So you're saying that there wasn't bias. How do you reconcile the fact that the Auditor General's report found that there was bias towards seats that were favourable to the coalition when the PM&C report says the opposite now?
Well, I'll believe the PM&C report. Yes, you're always going to have sometimes when people look at things, they look at things in a different light. I believe the PM&C report that has been handed down, I believe that there was no bias.
So
and what I would like to see, is that these sports grants have ongoing rounds of funding, because then those electorates that missed out, those sporting clubs and organisations which missed out, might have better luck next time. And I know that right throughout Australia there are a lot of sports clubs which, yes, put in countless hours to ensure that their reports, their applications were all as they should be. And I have to say that every single project which was funded in rounds 1, 2 and 3, each and every round, was eligible according to Sports Australia, eligible according to the department and eligible according to the Minister. So that's what she was faced with. Every single project was eligible, and she based her allocations on that. Mark.
Do you have the numbers to prevent Barnaby Joyce taking your leadership, and why should you remain leader?
Well, there is no vacancy for the leadership at the moment of the National Party, and I have delivered for regional Australia. I've absolutely made sure that the $100 billion record amount of money that we're spending on infrastructure, that regional Australia has received its fair share. And when you look at the Inland Rail, those 3 intergovernmental agreements, they've all been signed, 2 of which have been with Labor states. Not an easy thing to do. When it comes to doctors in the bush, I've made sure that the rural medical school network through the Murray-Darling has been established, more than $90 million to ensure that people in regional Australia don't have to wait unnecessarily to see a GP. And that process is taking place as we speak. They're already building the first facility at Orange as part of that rural medical school network with Charles Sturt University and Western Sydney University. Fact is, there is no vacancy for the National Party leadership. We have a vacancy for the deputy leadership of the National Party. We will have a meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock and we'll decide that position then.
Will you be spilled against? How confident are you that you won't be?
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, but I have the support of the National Party, and nobody has phoned me to say that I haven't, or nobody has phoned me to say that there's a spill. I appreciate that there's media speculation. You guys always have those sorts of media hype and build it up. Well, Barnaby Joyce has said that he will stand if there is a spill called. No spill has been called, and I'm not expecting one to be.
What does that say about the stability of the National Party in the Parliament if you've got Barnaby Joyce going out saying he's ready to be the leader of the party when in fact you say there is no vacancy?
Well, I'm sure Barnaby is ready to be the leader of the party should there be a spill called, but there has been no spill called. There is no vacancy for the leadership position. I am the leader of the party, I have the party support, and moreover, I'm out there delivering for regional Australians. That's the most important thing. People out in regional Australia, perhaps watching this telecast or reading newspapers in recent days, they're not focused on the machinations of the National Party or indeed the parliamentary circles here in Canberra. What they're concentrating on is making sure that they get through this drought. What they're concentrating on is making sure that the recovery efforts are there for the fire. And I'm glad I'm part of a government which is doing just that, addressing the important issues which are the touchstone for people sitting around family tables and talking about the bushfires and the ongoing drought.
Do you accept everything that the people in your party who are deeply unhappy with your leadership will describe it as anemic and now?
No, I don't.
Mr. McCormack, if there is a spill, will you stand? Will you
Well, of course. And I have the overwhelming majority support in the party room. And of course I'm going to continue as the National Party leader, as my colleagues want, and as I think regional Australians would expect.
take that as a vote of no confidence?
No. Mark, you've had your question. I'll go. No, hang on.
Another one if you've got time.
Maybe privately. Ring me later.
You say that you believe that PM&C report, no one has had a chance to see the report. You can see the audit report. previous reports that have been presented to Cabinet as ministerial conduct have been released. Why don't you release this report, Senator?
Well, it's not my job to release. It is a cabinet document. It is a report by the Phil Gaetjens, the Secretary of the PMC, to the Prime Minister, and so it is the Prime Minister's report. And that's the way it should be. Now, I'm going to take your question, then I've really got a ministry meeting that I have to get to, and I don't want to be late.
What do you think of Barnaby Joyce?
No, well, I will answer your question, thank you, Mark, and I'll come back to yours. Sure, well, I actually heard the gist of it, but...
Good. So there's $145,000 that was apparently granted through the scheme by Bridget McKenzie to a sporting organisation that was funded the treasurer of. That organisation
Was treasurer of.
Okay. That organisation apparently had been locked up on 3 previous...
For government grants.
Did you have any responsibility to declare a family interest in that grant?
The organisation you are referring to is the Mangapla Kukadini United East Lakes Goannas Football and Netball Club, and the ladies of the Netball Club applied for funding, having failed 3 times, applied again, and again I say to organisations which missed out, if you failed this time, try again, because that club, it was its 4th application. Their netball courts were deemed unsafe and unplayable, not just due to the surface, but as I understand, due to the overall width on the outside of the courts, because there wasn't enough room between the interchange benches and the actual playing courts. They applied for the funding, they received the funding, nothing to do with my son, nothing to do with me. The fact is, when I found the fact that they had actually applied for the funding, I recused myself from any advocacy, and whilst many of the grants throughout.
Michael McCormack really defending the sports program and the grants given. He is doubling down this morning, paying tribute to Bridget McKenzie.